Hey everyone, this video shows my process in creating an Ouroboros. This is one of 12 works that I will create using recycled, found, or repurposed materials. An Ouroboros is an image depicting a snake that is swallowing its own tail, as a symbol of wholeness or infinity. The symbol expresses the unity of all things which never disappear but are always changing form in an eternal cycle of destruction and recreation. The Ouroboros has appeared in several cultures and religions throughout history. My intent is to use it as a way to bring together the tension between the finite and the infinite. I want to create almost all of the creature using recycled, found, or repurposed materials, as it itself symbolizes cycles. I saved all the paper I could. This includes extra unused copies and projects students didn't want. For this work, I need to make a compound of plaster and paper, so I needed to break down these materials in order to use them to build with. I placed them into a plastic container and covered them with water for 24 hours. Once the paper had fully softened, I broke down the paper by hand. I then used a drill and mixer to help break the paper fibers down further. I then laid the paper pulp out to dry. I made a lot of paper pulp to use for many future projects. It took a few days for the pulp to dry, but when it was nearly dry, I mixed it again to further soften and break it down. The dried paper pulp is light and fluffy, just how I hoped it would be. I collected the paper pulp in buckets that I would later mix with plaster. I needed to repurpose old plaster, so I researched how to recycle and reuse plaster. It started with breaking down old projects that were left behind from my former students. I chose to set the plaster pieces on concrete and use a sledgehammer to smash them. The key is to get the plaster dry first, then crush it into powder. This was very difficult and time-consuming, especially since I didn't have a grinder. As long as I cleaned the concrete surface first, the plaster would stay clean and uncontaminated. I swept the crushed plaster into a dustpan and placed the plaster on a screen over a bucket. I saved the screen after replacing a screen door so I could use it for this purpose. Screening the crushed plaster reduces the plaster down to powder. I placed the powder into disposable roasting tins and placed them in 300-degree heat for a couple hours to make sure all the water was out. The powder still had some sand-sized grains throughout, but it didn't really affect the quality. Now that I have both the paper pulp and powder plaster, I mix them together evenly. begin the frame of the body, I used poultry wire. I found this by emailing friends and teachers that I knew, asking them if they had any extra. And a couple teachers came through with some poultry wire that they had lying around. I was really grateful for that. I compressed the wire and twisted it into the desired form. To close in the wire, I mixed Elmer's glue with water and I dipped recycled paper in the glue to place over the wire, form like paper mache. It took a couple layers to close in the whole form. Once I had macheted the form with paper, I was ready to use the paper and plaster compound I had created from recycled materials. I mixed the compound with water until it had a sticky consistency. The first layer didn't stick to the paper as well as I had hoped, but consecutive layers were receptive. The compound hardens in about 15 minutes. This work was a lesson in patience. There were many unexpected challenges, and it took more than 100 hours to complete. Here I used wooden pegs to help separate and stabilize the form. The form became really heavy, especially with the water weight, and it cracked as I moved it. Filling the cracks with more compound immediately fixed the cracks. I chose to refine the form as I sculpted it. This helped me achieve a more smooth and refined surface. Please visit Art with Andrews for the conclusion of making the Ouroboros.